and welcome to another episode of Ask the Doc. I am your host, Jennifer Filzen, and I'm super excited today. I have with me Cecilia Racine of the Immigration Evaluation Institute. Welcome, Cecilia.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Oh, I'm excited to have you. So tell us a bit about what you do at Immigration Evaluation Institute, because this is such a hot topic right now.
Sure. So I'm a licensed clinical social worker and I had a private practice for a while and doing individual therapy. And I started getting calls from immigration attorneys in the community asking if I did immigration evaluations. And I wasn't quite sure what those were. So I asked around, and it was actually the attorneys themselves that helped me really craft my first template. I thought to myself, I have a lot of experience working with immigrants my entire career, and I also have a lot of experience doing assessment in my career. And I thought it would be a really good mix between the two. And so I did that for a couple of years, and I got a lot of calls from other therapists like, oh, I see you do this. How did you get into it? And, when you start repeating the same thing over and over again, I start thinking, oh, maybe there's a better way to deliver this. And so I created courses that teach therapists how to create these immigration evaluations that can help immigrants and immigrant families in a variety of cases.
Wow. So now before our discussion, I saw that you are an immigrant yourself. So you have lived this, and your goal is to keep immigrant families together. And you hear in the news, like, these families are getting separated. I'm sure there's just an amazing amount of trauma that is going on because they've already done extraordinary things to get here to the United States, and then to be separated from their children. It just Tell us a little bit about your experience, and if you can, do you have any success stories of people that your group has helped?
Oh, sure. I'd be happy to share. So personally, I'm from Argentina, actually, and my whole family was living there in the late 70s, early 80s, and we fled the dictatorship. And we had a very easy go of it, considering everything. I mean, we had a job waiting for my parents, and we came in a plane, and my family got to stay together. And so it was a very different experience than what a lot of people you see in the news, but it still really inspired me. And years later, when I became a social worker, I just naturally gravitated towards working with immigrants. Despite, I worked in everywhere from hospitals to schools and adoption agencies, but that one constant was always immigrants. So that was, it's just in my heart. It's my passion to work with this population. There are basically two types, and I'm oversimplifying things, but two types of immigration evaluations. One is for people who've experienced some kind of trauma, like what you were mentioning. So they're coming to the US, escaping persecution, and they're seeking asylum. And so those evaluations really focus on the trauma they've experienced and how it impacted them. The other group of evaluations are about keeping families together. And what's interesting is that about half my clients are actually US citizens. And they are the spouses and children and parents of non immigrants. And so they're sponsoring them. And so the evaluation focuses on how this US citizen would be affected if they were separated from their family member. In terms of success stories, I can tell you, it's very rewarding to have someone. It's always an honor when someone comes to my office and they're the first. I'm often the first person they tell their trauma, and they are so scared, and they've been told horrible things about who they are, who they associate with, or they were just, a set of circumstances, and to have survived that, and to have survived the journey here, and to finally feel safe, and to be part of assuring that they can stay in the country is a big relief. I also enjoy the cases with children a lot. I do enjoy working with children, and there are cases that are really frustrating sometimes, where people are detained for very, very minor, traffic violations, and then the police find out that they're in the country undocumented, and it sort of just leads to this snowball effect of them being put into deportation proceedings. And so to be able to sit with a family and talk about how these children would be impacted, both short-term and long-term, because, as clinicians, we know this isn't just a one-time event. Trauma can follow people for the rest of their lives. And to be able to succinctly write that in a report and be that voice and explain to the court what that means clinically, what it could potentially mean for this family member is really powerful.
Amazing. So you mentioned earlier that a lot of people that you work with are indeed U.S. citizens, and I'm not sure I really was clear on that because am I to understand? And again, forgive me, I haven't
Yeah.
been familiar with this process as you have, so please educate me and everyone watching. So, in order for someone to come over legally, do they need to have a U.S. citizen as a sponsor? And is that the reason
No, so those
why?
are no, 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 no. Those are two different kinds of cases. So the asylum cases, people come seeking asylum, and it's perfectly illegal to enter the country and ask for asylum. And so those people don't need sponsors. They just need to prove that they were being persecuted on account of, their race, religion, gender, social group, lots of different things. And so that's sort of one category of evaluations. A separate category of evaluations are families that are already here, and there's a one US citizen family member or more, and they are sponsoring someone else. And so those evaluations, so let's say you have a US
Got it.
citizen husband, and he married a non citizen wife, and she had entered the country unlawfully. So for him to be able to sponsor her, he can, but because she entered unlawfully, there's a penalty. So immigration is saying, yes, you can sponsor this person, but she entered unlawfully. So the penalty, she has to leave for 5 or 10 years. And so the kind of reports that we focus on are explaining you're waiving that. You're saying, can you waive them having to leave for 5 to 10 years because it would impact the US citizen.
Whoa, I had no idea that if someone were to come here without the proper procedure that they would, oh
Right.
wow, to have a married couple, or I guess I would assume that they would get married in a different country and then come over, and it's like, well, just come
No,
on,
so you
honey,
have
it'll be fine.
no, no, no. So you have a US citizen here who's just, living their life, and they meet someone, often as many people meet at work, right? And they get married here in the US, and they have a home together and they have children together. And let's say, and
Got it.
again, this example, the husband is a US citizen, the wife entered the country unlawfully. So he can, because he's a US citizen, can sponsor her for her green card. But because she entered unlawfully, immigration says, sure, no problem, just leave for 5 to 10 years
Okay.
first and then come back. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And again, forgive my dumb question, but I'm just
No,
because
no,
I'm
no,
in
not at
I'm
all.
in I'm in Monterey, California, and we have some very, very dear friends that are from various states in Mexico. And
Mhm.
there is discussion. These are these friends of ours. They're like family. They are business owners, responsible citizens. They do great, but there are some members within their own family that are not here legally, and so it's an interesting discussion because the family does indeed want to stay together, and it's just heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking to see families split. Um, but it is interesting also. Again, please forgive me. I'm so ignorant on this topic, and that's why I'm thrilled to have you here, Cecilia. Um, because the United States was built off of having a melting pot. I'm a fifth generation Floridian, I'm a first generation Californian, but my family has been in the United States from Germany from many generations ago, right? And we can even trace our original ancestors to the Mayflower and even the Spanish conquistadors that settled St. Augustine, Florida. So it's kind of like, well, aren't we all immigrants?
Right,
And forgive me, I know
absolutely.
that this is politically charged, but yet it's kind of like, well, we're all immigrants here, aren't we? All welcome, but obviously the rules have gotten stricter, and things are different. Um, if you could educate more people like me and as to what is going on and how you can be of service, what advice do you have for those of us who want to at least be allies, or at least direct them to you if they see that a family is suffering needlessly?
Right. No, and so that was sort of my impetus for creating this institute, sort of creating a community of clinicians across the country um, that can provide these evaluations because they are a very powerful tool. Research has come out that if you look at someone who applied for asylum without an evaluation and someone who applies with an evaluation, the person who applies with an evaluation has a 78% greater chance of getting their case approved. So you're really
Wow.
making quite the impact with these evaluations. And so my purpose in creating the institute and educating more clinicians is saying, this isn't an impossible barrier. We already have the clinical skills, all of us. We all know how to do assessment. When we meet with someone, we don't just jump in. We do a thorough assessment, and so it's just a matter of taking that information and writing it in the way that immigration wants it presented. But it's very doable, and you can have such a great impact. And for me, I really enjoyed the mix of having, the clients that come regularly, and then these types of cases that have a more finite, beginning, middle, and end, and are really making an impact in my community. So I would tell people not to, be afraid, that it is very doable. Sometimes people think, oh, a report, but, I offer templates and samples, and it's not that hard of a barrier, and you can make a really big impact. I know a lot of people don't like writing either, but this is just something that you would naturally write about if you were writing some really extensive notes.
Ah, fascinating. You're doing such good work. And it's so good to hear that the chances of them being able to stay and get processed through immigration correctly with an evaluation, the odds are so much higher. So thank you. Oh my gosh. We've run out of time, but Cecilia, thank you so very much for being on the show. And everyone, if you would like to learn more about the great work that Cecilia Racine is doing at her Immigration Evaluation Institute, please go to Buzz TV at iwannabuzz.com and learn more about what she's doing. Thank you so very much for watching. I hope you felt as educated as I about immigration and the process of keeping immigrant families together. And again, thank you for watching. See you next time. Bye.